Hi there, Guthrie here, talking about behavioral economics, and today's topic is status quo bias. So, here's what I want you to do. We have a little exercise for you. This is what I want you to do. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to go work out. Right now, whatever your workout is, like a 60-minute intense workout, and I will see you back here in just a second. Okay, back from your workout? Of course you're not back from your workout. No one paused the video and actually went and worked out. I mean, maybe a couple of people who wanted to anyways. You didn't do that. You just waited, and now you're listening to me talk 5 seconds after I had my intro. Why is that? That's called status quo bias, and it is our topic today. So, status quo bias is a bias that we're all pretty familiar with. It's not, it's not arcane. It's pretty straightforward. We humans like to remain in the status quo, and that's probably biological. If you're going to keep running around and wasting energy, probably not so good for your survival. So status quo bias, we like to be where we are. We like our comfort. We like our space, and we don't like to actively go and change our circumstances. And you can apply this to all sorts of different situations. There's a paper I want to quote called Status Quo Bias in Decision Making by Samuelson and Zeckhauser. And they do, it's a study of studies, and I really like these papers. They go through a ton of studies, and I'm not going to go into that right now. You can read that at your own, if you'd like to peruse the various data. But I just want to quote their conclusion from the study of all the studies, quote, "In choosing among alternatives, individuals display a bias towards sticking with the status quo." So that's what it is, we like to remain constant. Now there's a theory, and it's one thing I do want to mention quick, that when it comes to status quo, that and it's about dopamine. So a lot of people think that dopamine is, you've heard of dopamine, the pleasure chemical, the pleasure thing. When we get rewarded, we have dopamine spikes. That is not true, or at least it's not true in that fashion. There's actually, what dopamine does is it actually is a reward-seeking chemical. When you have dopamine released, you want to go seek. That's what it is. So if you think about, there's actually a great study with rats, and they had, when a light would turn on, the rat would go over and press the bar, and then a food pellet would come out. And so you think the dopamine would happen when they ate the food pellet, but in fact it happened when the light came on. So when the light comes on, that's when the dopamine happens. That tells the rat to go seek. And we've done posts. There's a great post that Susan did recently about why phones are so addictive, and I encourage everyone to go check that one out. And basically, when we see that picture of someone, we want to seek, right? So seek, and it creates this wonderful dopamine loop. Well, that actual dopamine loop is one of the best ways to overcome status quo bias, or the quirk, the human quirk that we have that is wanting to maintain the status quo. If you can trigger dopamine in someone, it's usually enough to get them off the couch and go do something, or to maybe not physically get them off the couch and go do something, but at least mentally get them off their mental couch to go swipe. So you can use dopamine, and you can use these sorts of dopamine triggers to overcome status quo bias in your products and services. So assume that change is hard. Assume that you need to kind of prompt people to take action. Let's say you have something at a website and you want people to do something, right? They're not going to do that unless you can get action from them. A great way to get people to commit to action is to have trigger points. So instead of just saying, you should go to the gym, right? Imagine if you were watching Netflix stopped and said, would you like to go to the gym right now and stop watching Netflix, yes or no? Now, a lot of you will hit no and continue to watch, but the fact that there is a decision point allows you to stop and reflect and think about whether you'd like to change. Think about Netflix autoplay. The whole point of autoplay is so that you don't have a decision point. There is no time to reflect. There's no time for dopamine to be released to go seek something else. Basically, it just autoplays and you continue with the status quo so you can binge watch. Now, there's nothing really wrong with that. I'm just saying, if what you want is you want people to change and to move, then you're going to want to use decision points as a way to break status quo bias. So hopefully that's a good understanding. I encourage you to use it. It's a understanding that people fundamentally stay where they are and prefer the status quo is definitely not a outlandish statement. I think that's pretty much common sense, but looking at it from a behavioral science and brain and behavioral science perspective can help bring some nuance to the topic. Thank you.